Well, tensions are on the rise as concerns over China's possible invasion of Taiwan continue to mount here in Washington. China held some major drills off the coast of the island this week. Let's bring in retired general and Fox News contributor Keith Kellogg to talk about the prospects for an invasion. Now, General, take a look at this. Just some of the menacing moves that China has made since December. They dispatched a record 71 planes towards Taiwanese airspace. 47 Chinese aircraft crossed the Taiwan Strait. China claims yet again that sovereignty over Taiwan is an indisputable fact, and they've also refused yet again to rule out using force in this ongoing bid for reunification. Are we inching closer to a future here where the likelihood of some kind of air or ground invasion becomes real?
Yeah, Jillian, first of all, thanks for having me. I think we are. I think they see a window of opportunity within the next 2 years to do something against Taiwan. President Xi has been very, very clear that he believes in unification, what he calls it, of Taiwan. Even though Taiwan is a country of 23 million, it's got a democratic government, but it's outnumbered 10 to 1 when it comes to China and the Taiwanese forces out there. And we don't have a defense treaty with them. We had one, it started in 1950, but it was abrogated by Jimmy Carter. That's what the reason the Taiwan Relations Act came into it. So to counter that, and what he is doing is sensitizing or desensitizing people to the fact of all these continued military movements. And one of these days, he just may cross the line and just go with it. And until we make a very clear statement, we, the United States of America, what that really means, and just not the president, but the Congress as well. And just giving them equipment isn't going to be the whole story. We've got to say to them, if
well,
we're
we know
serious
that doesn't cut the mustard from our experiences over the last year in Ukraine.
Well, you're right. And we just need to be very clear. This is what's going to happen, and this is what we are going to do. And I think we've got some pretty good alliances that are set up out there, primarily with when Prime Minister Kishida was in yesterday with the president, with Japan. But we have to make it very clear. If they invade, are we going to fight or not? And this is a national decision. It's not a presidential decision. This is a decision that the American people got to make.
Well, to that point, General, this time a year ago, the world, including the United States, sat idly by, wondering if Putin would dare to invade Ukraine as he built up hundreds of thousands of troops along the border for 6 months. It's hard not to draw a comparison with what we're seeing the Chinese do now vis-a-vis Taiwan.
You're exactly right. And that's the reason, I mean, you desensitize it. And remember, when all these forces, let's just use Ukraine as an example, when the Russians were building up these forces, if you go back historically and look what people were saying, oh, he's not going to cross the border, he's not going to cross the border. There were people saying, when they were in attack positions, 2 days before the assault into Ukraine, that he wasn't going to cross the border. Yes, he was. I mean, you've got to just look at the forces, how they're set up and they're aligned. And there's going to be a couple tells. And the tells that you see, if they start increasing their amphibious capability and capacity off the coast of Taiwan, that's the real key. That means he's building up to use force. The Taiwan Straits are 100 miles wide. It's not going to be that easy to do. It's sort of like going back into Normandy with the Allied invasion in 1944. But can the Chinese do it? Of course they can. It's a matter of will. And if President Xi has the will to do it, it doesn't make any how many forces he loses.
Well, let me turn this around back at you this way. Do you have any reason, have you seen any indication from the Chinese regime that Xi is not willing to do something like this?
And he's banking on the fact within the next 2 years that he's got a president that will not react strongly. He'll talk a big game, but nothing's going to happen. And once they get that nuclear arsenal going, it's the same thing. It's exactly the same reason why we're not pushing back against the Russians. Well, they've got a nuclear arsenal. Well, so do the Chinese. We have to take, look, risk is a province of war. And you may have to make that decision. We as a nation, are we going to allow this to happen? Is a free world going to allow this to happen? And make that choice now. But we have to get the American people behind us. The American people have to be with us on this if they want to go forward.